GM, everybody. Welcome to an evening edition of Pinto Town Hall. Uh, this will likely be on the shorter end. Some of the contributors are ill, and it's also at a time where some of them can't join. So there's only a couple of us here. So we'll likely keep this one on the shorter end. But nonetheless, very excited to be here and talking about what's going on the farm with everyone. So with that, why don't we kick it over to Frio? How are you doing, sir? What have you been up to?
GM. Doing good, doing good. So last week, been working on a couple of things. So one, we had a conversation with the convert bonus and, I made it the changes there. Uh, and now just doing some testing. So that's very exciting. Uh, really excited to get this out hopefully in the next 2 weeks or so. On the front end side, we are finalizing the front end landing page with John Deere, which unfortunately he's not here. But he's been working really hard, and you know, the end product is something that we're really proud of and excited to share that with the team. A good portion of my time this week was also spent on this Hypernative response incident. Uh, if you guys have seen, on Monday there was a potential malicious attack. Someone deployed a contract that utilized pipeline to call a function on the Pinto protocol. And, due to the way that it was encoded, it's, triggered a bunch of alarms from the Hypernative team and subsequently, triggered their response. So for context, whenever the Hypernative response is triggered, what it does is that it upgrades the Pinto daemon to remove all functionality from the Pinto daemon other than, the two core functionalities that we need to upgrade the daemon. This prevents all attacks from happening, uh, and which is, a very conservative or very aggressive, I guess, way to kind of protect the protocol. But especially during these early days, uh, we think it's very good to kind of be very aggressive and then scale back as needed. You know the the incident truthfully wasn't a severe one. No funds were ever at risk, but this was a great opportunity to see how Hypernative reacted to here. I talked with them afterwards and got a little insight on how this attack is now incorporated into their algorithm such that future attacks like this uh, won't be won't trigger the alarms. So great to see that happen, and always committed to security and making this protocol stronger.
Can you just clarify what you mean by the future attacks like this won't trigger the alarm? Like, is it that this wasn't an attack and therefore it was a false positive, or is it that this level of the type of attack we shouldn't be responding in the way that we did?
Yeah. So, I guess to clarify what an attack is, I guess just truthfully an attack is, based on the intentions of the person. In this case, the user deployed a contract trying to attack, but the attack itself was invalid. So I guess what I meant by preventing future attacks like this from sounding the alarm, I mean attacks that don't actually harm the protocol in any form, even though there was intent to do so. Uh, this is for this attack particularly, this is something where someone who is just playing around with pipeline and it's a junior developer could have encoded data wrong. And from my perspective, this is something that could have been detected. Uh, so I want to avoid stuff like this in the future, where improper code encodings or improper use of pipeline creates these attack vector, or I guess triggers the Hypernative response.
Thanks for explaining that. Anything else on your end?
Yeah. Uh, you know, had a fruitful discussion following last week's town hall with Ben and talking about how the system is right now and how the excessively low L2SR threshold is parameterized. And, we are planning to make a change to lower that excessively low L2SR threshold. Uh, I'll pass it on to you to explain why we do that after we go through all the contributors. Uh, but hopefully we can get that out very quickly. Unlike other PIs, this is just a parameter change. And in this instance, no code actually changes, just state it changes. So it's a very quick thing we can add to the protocol. So just working on that. We at Pinto, really prioritize having great documentations, underwriting documentation to make sure that everybody understands, the rationale behind this and the solution and how we actually implement this in practice.
Thanks. All right, I assume that's it on your end. Quite a number of things. I know Burr, who I don't think we've heard from in a couple weeks, has been working on the convert bonus stuff, particularly on the front end. Is the expectation that around the same time that you cited, like 2 weeks for the convert bonus, does that include the front end?
Correct. So for the front end and middleware, they've been closely talking to each other, and before it seemed like the middleware was the blocker, but we quickly got that unblocked. So both sides of that stack seem to be progressing really well, such that we can hit a 2 week deadline for the convert bonus.
Awesome. Good to hear. Good to hear. All right, let's kick it over to the other contributor here at the moment, Pintacito. How are you doing, sir?
GM, it's good to be here with you boys. It's been a fun week on the farm. It's been a lot of pleasure to execute the Beaver week, which is just coming to a close now. It's been really awesome to see the love that is shared among the community members, seeing them uh, individually, some of the ones that we made honoraries for be put in the spotlight, and seeing other ones give them props. Also to see the ones who got their honoraries seem to like them. So it's just been good to uh, spread some positivity and give credit where credit is due to the people that are the heart and soul of this farm that we have here. So it's been a lot of fun for me personally. Otherwise, uh, been continuing to edit the work and QCing the landing page that we have coming up. Excited about that. Hey, what's up, Mochan?
Oh, hello. One second, I gotta turn the
Just
volume.
talking about you.
Oh, for real? How's it going, everyone?
Doing good, bro. Doing good. Um, and other than that, we're gonna have a bunch of articles coming down the hatch. Ben has done a great job pumping them out, and I'll be helping to edit them over the course of the next couple weeks, and we'll be rolling them out henceforth. So very excited about all of that.
Thank you, sir. All right, a couple things I think worth talking about, and uh, like I said, since a lot of the contributors are unable to attend this week, this one will be pretty short. But first, I do want to talk about the Hypernative situation. Uh, Hypernative generally offers proactive security, which is a really interesting element of the, like, let's call it the security stack that we use here at Beanstalk and Pinto, where we have audits that we try to do with a regular cadence when we make code changes. Because this is still a small project budget wise, for smaller code changes, we don't necessarily have everything audited, but we do have periodic audits to keep the code base up to date with respect to audits, hoping to have another one in the not too distant future. Then we have a bug bounty program, which works differently from the audits. Where the audits are like you have a firm come in, or sometimes you do an audit competition where you have like a period of time where people all compete for a fixed amount of prize money for discovering bugs as a way to initially clear the code. A bug bounty is sort of a recurring thing where at any time, if anyone finds a bug, they can report it and receive a reward based on the level of severity and the funds at risk, etc. There was just a new bounty paid out related to an issue with the pods. $20,000 bounty was paid out from Pinto recently through the Immunify Bug Bounty Program. So that continues to surface issues, which is very encouraging always to see that there's things being discovered and that white hats are looking at this thing. But Hypernative is a different layer of the system, the stack, where basically Hypernative has a system that monitors the network itself and is constantly looking for potential vulnerabilities and data that might imply that there's some sort of risk. And this was something that we set up after the Beanstalk exploit for Beanstalk. And we've had Hypernative live on Pinto since it was deployed. Recently, we announced an extension to the deal with Hypernative because we're very happy with their services. And this was really the first time I believe that we've had an incident like this where the way Hypernative is set up is that, as Frio was saying, if there's something detected, Hypernative's automated system has the ability to remove all functionality from the contract, such that unless you have the ability to upgrade the contract, which the attacker almost certainly would not, there's no way to extract value from the protocol because all of the functions that might have been vulnerable are removed instantaneously. So this was even though it was sort of a false alarm, if you will, it was great to see the system at work in the wild and is a good data point that even if there are certain potential issues, if a black hat is trying to take advantage of it, there's that last layer of defense, which is super low latency. They can protect the system. So that was really cool, honestly. And even though it was a little bit like uncomfortable to wake up, to the fact that the thing was paused, it's much better than waking up to the fact that all the liquidity's been drained. So generally, I was very encouraged to see that. I think another thing worth talking about briefly, and this is a continuation of last week's town hall and the discussion at the end there about the excessively low L2SR. We have decided to go ahead and lower the excessively low L2SR threshold to 5% from its current 12%. And as of now, the amount of liquidity in the system is about 8.58% is the L2SR. And so we felt like 6%, which was I think the number that I threw out last week, was still a little too close, such that it would likely mean that we have to make the same change again sometime soon. And we do want to make the change in a way that actually gives the system a little room to breathe for the crop ratio to come up ahead of the convert bonus going live in a couple weeks and to test out that system. And at the same time, we feel like it's important to signpost that even in the medium term, we don't want to be in a situation where this is a parameter that we're constantly lowering and lowering. Although until we introduce an automated way to change this threshold and potentially others, that is going to be the status quo. So we decided to lower it a little bit more than I'd suggested last week, with the hopes that we don't have to lower it again. And if we do, we'll only have to lower it one more time. And, instead of lowering it to 6 and then 5 and et cetera, 6 and 4, and then beyond that. So that change should go live soon and should allow the protocol to re-incentivize converts, which obviously the price has dipped a bit since we've fallen below the excessively low L2SR and the crypto markets come down a little bit, and we've experienced a small amount of outflows. So we'll see how this parameter change affects the system. I think it's worth saying that we are really at a point where, aside from the convert bonus, we don't have too many other changes. We don't have really any changes to the model itself. We have tractor updates, and then it's really like just parameterizing the system properly for now. So in my mind, it's definitely kosher to be tweaking the parameters like this and seeing how it affects the system. And I think over the next 6 months, more likely than not, the majority of changes, other than improving the tractor functionality to the protocol itself, are going to come more from these parameter changes. So this may be the first of maybe not many, but the first of a couple parameter changes. And I'm excited about it. So those are maybe the two things to respond to what's already been said. I think, as Pintocito mentioned, I've been grinding some articles that explain each part of the system more in plain English, which is something that I don't think we really have right now, to explain why each piece of the incentive mechanism is designed the way that it is. I'm really excited to get those out into the world and to make this whole system, which has gotten quite complex, more accessible to people. And still figuring out the right cadence there. After the landing page and convert bonus, a lot of our front end development attention is going to be focused on cleaning up the user interface as a whole. And so I think it makes a lot of sense to have these articles as a complement to the revamped front end, which will make interfacing with the protocol and leveraging the tractor a lot simpler. So overall, there's a lot of stuff happening here. It feels like if we can make the protocol a little bit simpler and more accessible to people, that will pay dividends in the future. Pun intended, I think. So going to open up the floor now briefly, see if anyone that's here has anything they want to talk about or that's on their mind. And then I'll probably briefly, because like I said, with fewer contributors here, it's a little bit of a more calm town hall. Going to try to keep this on the shorter end. So probably won't do a longer spiel like I usually do, but the floor is open.
Hello. So with the Hypernative thing, this is definitely something where it's more applicable as the protocol is kind of in its infancy or like in the beginning. And I'm guessing that it is probably like training wheels, because if the contracts are like, past a billion or past 10 billion is like more consensus based upgrading, then how would this work? Or if like if they're ever frozen?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Thank you. So the PCM is going to give up effectively the right to change the parameterization or upgrade the model after 500 million. But as it's currently documented, they will retain the ability to fix bugs. And so that means that we can potentially keep Hypernative in place moving forward. And I think it would be prudent to do so. Like in the case of Beanstalk, the Hypernative system could have likely detected and prevented the exploit altogether. Although not for sure, given the way that the Create2 is implemented. Now, I think the more interesting question is in the context of the fork system, which is hopefully going to be ready this fall, maybe in the winter though. I think what could be a reasonable way to do bug fixes in general, particularly potentially dangerous ones. Let's say, and I don't know if this is the optimal solution, but you can either have some multi-sig that can implement the bug fixes and sort of reinstate the rules of the protocol, once the Hypernative activity has occurred and there's sort of an all clear, or whatever the potential exploit was has been patched, or the vulnerability has been patched, you can have a multi-sig just restore functionality. But what you could do under a fully fledged fork system as well is have basically just a new deployment. So it's possible that the right way to do this is to have Hypernative remove the functionality and then have basically a new set of contracts deployed such that people migrate to the new set of contracts. And in that way, you really can have like a governance-free version of the system. Now, I think it probably the optimal solution is probably likely to change over time. Like when Pinto is at 100 billion, let's call it, God willing, one day we get there, that there will be so much value at risk that the likelihood, there's a Lindy effect here around security, where the likelihood that there's some major bug, or even a significant bug, even if not a major bug, that would warrant the PCM or some comparable multi-sig continuing to have this level of authority over the protocol decreases. And when you combine it with the low friction ability to migrate to something like the fork system, you can imagine a world where no one owns the contract and smaller bugs are left there. And in like a periodic sense, there's a new version pushed that fix all known bugs, none of which are critical. And that sort of becomes the way that these upgrades occur. But of course, if you have a critical issue, you still need a way to protect the system and protect the holders. And that would require something like Hypernative to remain if we're not going to have multi-sig ownership of the system. So in many ways, Hypernative is more likely to persist here than the multi-sig ownership, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's quite intriguing. Yeah, I appreciate the clear up there. I was very intrigued with the system when it triggered.
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. The floor is open if anyone has other questions or comments or thoughts or whatever. Cool. All right. Feel free if something comes to people's minds to chime in. I would like to comment on just a couple things briefly, even though my intention is to keep this town hall on the shorter end. It's also very late where I am. I traveled today, and I'm quite exhausted. So I apologize if my energy levels aren't necessarily where they are typically for these town halls, which I love very much. You know, as I use the front end to interact with the protocol, I find it to be quite high friction in general, and I can only imagine for a new user how intimidating and high friction it is to actually participate. And so where I sit, as we try to figure out what it would take to just to get Pinto to be more attractive to people, and I think it's worth maybe a short digression here. In the history of Beanstalk and Pinto, I've always found myself in the camp of being very nervous about the protocol growing a lot because of the novelty of the mechanism. It always felt like better to have more time to clean up the model and tweak the inefficiencies than have it necessarily grow aggressively. But once we implement the convert bonus, as I've said before, that really is in my mind at least, the tail end of the S curve with respect to the improvements to the model that we want to make at this point in time. And the discovery of the need to have autonomous changes to the thresholds based on multiple season look back. That's actually a new potential change. But as I've said, I think that's something that should be done from a more holistic perspective over a slightly longer period of time just changing one of the thresholds. And so that goes into what I was saying earlier about our decision to just change the threshold once. But given that we are sort of approaching the end of the S curve with respect to the upgrades that we want to make with Pinto in the short term, and if people recall, Pinto was launched largely in a response to the fact that we weren't getting data from Beanstalk because no one was really using it about the mechanism and about the way that the model works. And each piece of the model, the new pieces, we weren't getting any sort of information about how we can improve them. We are sort of at the point, particularly once the convert bonus goes live, where there's no other pieces of the puzzle that we intend to make in the very short term, other than, of course, the fork system, but that's not model related. And so at this point, I find myself more interested than ever and figuring out how to get people to take a look here and to start to use the protocol, to have it grow. And that doesn't mean that there's any sort of guarantee that the thing works, that it's going to work in perpetuity. But in my mind, in order for us to meaningfully continue this experiment and to take things to the next level for real, we actually do want Pinto to grow here. At least call it a 10x and see how it works in the nine figures range. And so in my mind now, a lot of my thought and focus here is trying to figure out what it would take to get the thing to grow to that size and to attract a new cohort of farmers to the system. And one of my theses here, other than putting out articles as we've started to do, and more than that, more than just like why articles that explain what we're doing here, how articles that explain the model itself. In my mind, the funnel, which I've talked a little bit about in these town halls, has to also include the front end and the user interface itself. And at this point, I'm starting to think quite deeply about what type of experience do we want to create for people, and how can we cleanly onboard people into the system in a way that still holds true to our values, where it's not a shill, where we're presenting people with all the information and doing it in a way that's authentic and accurate. But at the same time, like if you go back to even the OG Beanstalk, like there was actually a lot of artificial friction in the user experience, such that in order to know what was going on, you actually had to do some digging. And that was really a self-selecting process, which worked out very well for Beanstalk. But at this point, I think due to a change in market conditions and general sentiment around algo stables, there aren't people, certainly not as many people, that are interested in doing that digging for real. And so I am interested in trying to figure out how can we change the user experience such that it really is possible for people to actually onboard and to start to use the system. And so once we have the new landing page, I think that's a meaningful part of the funnel. But the interface to the app to interact with the protocol is also a huge part of it. So we're going to start with the overview page and really cleaning that up and making it more accessible and welcoming to newbies, the new wallet overview page, I should say. And then we're going to go down the line and basically clean up each of these pages. We're going to revamp the Learning Center. And I hope that through this work, which will take place throughout the rest of this year, we'll really make Pinto a more welcoming place for new depositors, to potential new depositors, to come investigate the protocol and ultimately turn them into farmers. I think we can do it really well. Not to say that the current UI isn't good, but it's very high friction and I think requires a lot of pre-existing knowledge about what's going on. It's not really intuitive for a noob. And we do want to make the whole thing welcoming to new farmers. So that's maybe the most important thing I think moving forward, is not just putting out thought pieces about why we exist, which have been doing well, not just creating a library of content that make it such that people can interface with the protocol and understand what they're doing. And as Tractor gets rolled out further, understand how Tractor actually works. But a layer deeper. That explains why each of these systems are designed the way they are. And people can really start to get into that headspace of, oh, this is why this is happening. And I find that much more compelling than just what's happening. The white paper is a technical description of what the system does, but it really avoids the why. And to have these articles, which are all drafted basically. So Pintocito and I need to sit down and sort of grind the rest of them out. We've put out the field. Next, I believe, will be the silo. And then we have a couple different like sub articles under the field and the silo, as well as more articles that are like about Pinto and Tractor and the pod market, et cetera, et cetera. I think that will go a long way. And then, of course, we still have the white paper. It's a little outdated, so we should be updating that within the not too distant future. And my hope is that with all these changes, we create a really welcoming environment for the protocol. So that's really my main focus at the moment. It's going to take a little time. It's one thing to draw up the changes to the front end. It's another thing to actually implement them. But personally, I'm very excited about this work. All right, I'm going to open up the floor again and see if anyone has new questions or thoughts or wants to respond to anything I said before I continue. Okay, so the other thing I want to talk about briefly is the temperature. And I think it's quite meaningful that we've found a steady range for temperature, largely between 650 and 700, and really around 700. Even as the pod line has grown in length, it's been very encouraging to see people willing to lend to the protocol. And I think, if you look at the field page, the average sown temperature is still 283%, which for a new protocol with no credit history, offering a 3x for creditors on average, it's pretty good. And now we've seen we saw the temp earlier in the year sort of rise up to the high 1300s, low 1400s. And so to have it settle down more than 50% below the highs is really encouraging. And there continues to be demand for soil. I will say that I think it's interesting how the cultivation factor has affected the demand for soil and the amount of pods that the system has removed. Like on the one hand, the system is regularly removing supply from the system, But on the other hand, if you look at the chart zoomed out, the change in sown pods over time, sown Pinto over time, has really come down since we implemented this soil snowball quite significantly from the pace at which people were sowing before. But it's unclear, and Tractor really did make a difference and sort of restored the upward march, but it is still happening at a much slower rate. And so at this point, to me, it's unclear. Is that happening because the remaining 11 million Pinto or so have a very strong preference to remain in the silo? Is it that the system is more efficient now, so people are lending at a lower rate, but there's less people willing to lend at this rate? Such that maybe the system would be able to almost certainly would be. But the question is how much. If the temperature were going higher, would there be, and there was no cap on the soil, would people be willing to sell more? Unclear, but I think it is really sustainable at the moment for the protocol to be lending out the amount of interest that it is, lending out at the interest rates that it is, I should say. So, ultimately, credit is the name of the game. And in order to be credit worthy, you have to be able to borrow money at a reasonable rate. And that's also the direct result of being credit worthy. So, as I look at the historical temperature chart, I'm quite encouraged by the fact that the system is generally hanging out in a quite consistent range and is not really at risk from my perspective of any sort of runaway debt. Whereas if you look at the Beanstalk system, right now the interest rate is some crazy multiple, like over 100. And that's the result in my mind of one, the temp going up and there being really no demand for debt, but two, the lack of a snowball that can do so in a highly efficient fashion. So I think it really speaks to the fact that the Pinto experiment has done really well as an experiment, at least, and in terms of improving on Beanstalk. So that's pretty encouraging data just to see how stable the interest rates are in the field. All right, I'm going to open up the floor one more time and see if people have anything to comment. Otherwise, going to wrap this one a little early. Again, due to the lack of updates from contributors and the fact that it's very, very late and I didn't really sleep last night, so I'm a little short on insight at the moment. All right, floor is open.
Yeah, I appreciate you chiming in, especially when you had a long day. Yeah, I don't want to hold two things, but with the remarks related to the field, I think I was just kind of thinking about my own interaction with the field and stuff, and I think the biggest change has been made where it's like, over the course of a couple updates, it went from a lot of soil available versus very little soil available. But if you want to continuously get access to new pods, you have to use the tractor. I think this leads to more efficient operations from the protocol's point of view, but from a UX point of view, it's very tricky to understand even how to use the tractor. Like I think there's been a lot of improvements to the tractor UI, but the base concept of the tractor, there's like 20 different things you think about, like multiple numbers based on the seasons, like how to fund the order. There's some execution parameters. And even like when you go to the form, it's still some technical terms. You can see like camel case terminology here that doesn't reflect directly what these fields mean. And I think that's just the nature of the system because tractor is a very advanced point of view. But I remember seeing multiple times where all the soil is brought up, but there is like maybe like a good price for me to get in, but like fudging with the tractor just doesn't seem available. So I think that could be an interesting goal to pursue to kind of maybe abstract away some of the tractor thing and kind of simplify an interface here to be able to engage with the soil ecosystem without actually like understanding the role of tractor. Like maybe if it's like, not as efficient as you going in maybe an advanced way to configure exactly how you want to set up your orders. If there was some simple mode to kind of interface with it, almost as simple as just, okay, there's soil available, I'm gonna buy it. I feel like it would help a ton in terms of understanding, or at least being able to fulfill that UX kind of gap. At least this is my opinion. This comes from a little bit of like anecdotal and sort of intuition here, but I guess those are the comments I have on the whole tractors or soil availability type thing. Although right now there's like 900 soil available, so clearly like there is some demand here. But anyways, that was my remarks on this.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. A really great point. And one of the things that we're trying to do with this UI revamp that I mentioned earlier in the town hall is create one, like a tractor first flow, and two, make it such that people can interface with tractor without necessarily having, let's call it, expertise. And right now, I think you're totally right. You open up this wanna sow a size, you hit that button, and you're like overwhelmed by like a form uh, with a lot of requests for information, for preferences. And on the one hand, this is one of the things that makes Tractor great, and the way we've implemented, I think pretty strong is that it offers a lot of flexibility for people. But we also are talking about the best way to make it such that if people don't want to have to think about it too much and just want to sow and participate in the field and lend to the protocol, maybe there's some default stuff filled and then this is more like hidden behind an advanced mode. And I'm totally in agreement with you that that has the potential to quite dramatically lower the friction for people to participate in the system. So, yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that stuff, Mochin. Thank you for raising it. I think the field page revamp is still a little further away from the perspective of just the ordering. It's probably not going to be one of the first two pages changed, but maybe we can move up the change to the form itself or something like that. So yeah, we'll definitely take your feedback into consideration, and grateful for you sharing your perspective here. And then I think you said you had a second thing as well.
Yeah, but I'll come back. I think I kind of lost track of that, but I'll see if it comes back again.
All good. Go Lira, welcome, sir.
Hey, hello.
How you doing?
Good. Just listening into
Any
the town hall for the first time.
welcome. Yes, I recognize a new handle. Welcome, welcome to the town hall.
Of course.
Any questions on your mind, sir?
No, just I happened to be free and in front of the computer, so I logged into.
Wonderful. Well, we're grateful to have you here. We're just here pretty much at the tail end here
Okay.
of this week's town hall. The floor. I'm going to open up the floor again, though. If anyone has any questions or thoughts before we wrap this up, anything at all, people are welcome to share.
Galira, it's nice to see you in chat getting active.
Thanks.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, I was thinking about the onboarding stuff. Is there like a defined set of goals for introducing more people into the system? Like, I think it's been talked about a lot. There's been like some tweets and the blog posts, which I think have been great. And I think, going on the podcast and stuff has been really good for inviting people. But I feel like there's still like, I guess traditionally Twitter has always been like where these type of projects kind of break out, but it seems like it's been a little bit tough to break out in terms of the broader crypto audience. At least people that, I followed for a really long time that I feel like are interested in experimental systems that would be up their alley that's like not breaking into that mind share yet. So I'm curious if, when it comes to the idea of broadening up the protocol to more people, trying to get more people to check out the website through the new landing page and maybe updating some of the UI here and making more improvements. Is there a general strategy from like at least the external marketing part, or not necessarily marketing just to get more people to ape in? That's not what you want, but like more people to at least talk and discuss like a system like this. Um, is there any changes from the current strategy? Is I think the critical part of that. What is working, what isn't working, and what are, ways that we can change to maybe break it to like pierce kind of that first sense of, you know, broader viewership, I guess. I don't know. I'm just curious on your thoughts about that.
Thank you for the question. I think there's a couple things to say here. One, at a high level, there's definitely been a lot of friction this time around to get the people that I would hope are interested in this type of thing to actually spend the time, if you know what I'm saying. Whereas when we were doing this with Beanstalk, I think the general market sentiment was quite different, both in terms of the people that were willing to sort of like ape now, read later about the protocol, but also the people that were more thoughtful about it. I think about like Steven from DeFi Dojo, for example, who was quite a, who was had me on his pod, I believe, and was sort of putting out content explaining stuff. People like that really haven't given Pinto the light of day yet. And I've tried to comment on Steven's posts, for example, when he's looking at, and comparing different yield opportunities and saying like, well, when are you going to consider Pinto into this stuff? And he really hasn't been. And he was someone that I know, for example, was very hurt I think he made a very emotional video after the Beanstalk exploit, apologizing to his constituents and his followers for sort of promoting. Maybe promoting is the wrong word, but sharing information about and supporting publicly Beanstalk. And I think generally we are running sort of an uphill battle this time with respect to the crypto arena. And so on the one hand, the the articles themselves are a newer strategy, and we did see like Chem, for example, from Sovereign, tweet something encouraging, sharing one of our posts. That he's always believed in algo stables. And if anyone's crazy enough to do it, he said it's me and the team. That type of stuff is meaningful, but we need more of that. And so on the one hand, I think part of what we need to do is to continue to put out meaningful pieces that really tell a compelling story. I do think that we need to clean up the interface a bit. I don't necessarily feel super proud of the user experience right now, from the docs, like these why things are designed articles, to the actual UI. So I think we can help ourselves a little bit. But then I think the curveball, if you will, is about utility. So maybe people just aren't going to pay attention to this until we really have utility. And this is something that, so far I've only really hinted about. But we have been working on a new, truly state of the art exchange at Nebula, which is a new company Brennan and I founded. That I think the potential to combine Nebula with the Pinto printer has both the potential to really unlock the power of Nebula in its entirety and create a product that really has the potential to outcompete TradFi, if you will, like a world-class exchange connected to a printer is a super powerful idea. And we're almost ready to implement it in practice. But then I think at another level, to have Pinto actually have utility, and that utility being potentially a flywheel, such that if we have, for example, Pinto denominated perps and Pinto settled perps, I should say, that if there's open interest there and that's going up, that's going to turn into demand for Pinto, which will turn into higher yields, which will turn into better funding rates for the Pinto perps. And that has the potential to be a really powerful flywheel. And that's something that I think we spoke about in a town hall maybe 5 months ago or so, but really only just hinted at it. And we're still a little early into that phase, but I do intend to do some pretty aggressive marketing around the Nebula stuff towards the end of this year. And I think if at that point in time, the stuff that we've been writing up and we'll continue to publish over the next couple months for Pinto and the cleaning up of the UI hasn't done it, hopefully that can be something that really takes the public awareness of this project to the next level. And the Nebula push will be focused on Nebula, but it will include Pinto in a way that I think has the potential to draw more eyes here and have people take it more seriously. So in that way, it wouldn't even necessarily be a shill. It would just be in the context of some really, really fucking cool tech in our space, really state-of-the-art stuff, that Pinto is a part of that conversation from an economic perspective. I think that's sort of the next step in the strategy. So over the next couple months, we're going to continue on the current path, which, we just hit 1,000 followers for Pinto on X. My follower count's going up every time we put in an article. So we are seeing some fruit there. But at the same time, we haven't really gotten the oomph of a growth cycle yet. No one's come in and really bid the thing up. Although we did get a big bid back when we were below 50 cents. We haven't had someone come and bid the protocol up and start a growth cycle yet. So short term, want to really shore up our system from an experience perspective across the docs and the interface. And then more medium term, if no one comes in and bids the system, hopefully the launch of Nebula will make people realize how powerful what we have is. We may just have to show people.
Yeah, it's definitely not an easy game, and it's definitely easy to forget. I shouldn't say baggage, or some of the history that people might have, and very easy to box away some experimental stuff as this, but V2, without considering what makes improvements or why we were even in this in the first place to kind of fuck around and find out, right? But no, I appreciate the attention to detail there, and I think I think continuing on this path and trying to get more engagement is definitely possible.
Oh, Chen, I really appreciate your questions. Really. All right. Somehow we almost filled the hour. So going to open up the floor one more time. See if there's anything else on people's minds to talk about. All right, so I'm going to close it with just a little fun thing. So I updated my Twitter handle subtly to, at the end of my Twitter handle, I added a in the spirit of like a 3-3, 1 almost equal to 1, 1-1, where there's like a congruent sign between them, which is to say it's not that 1's equal to 1, but 1 is almost equal to 1. And that I thought would be a cool way for people to show on the socials, particularly X, that they're a part of the Pinto community and that we believe in the power of a soft peg, that you don't need perfect stability in order to have utility. But as long as you're about equal to 1 over time, that's pretty good. So I'm throwing that out there. I made that change subtly this week and never really told anyone what it meant or anything like that. So here is the first time I'm uttering anything about it, and maybe I'll post about it sometime soon and see if it catches on and if people are interested in that as a way to represent their membership of the community. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for coming, and we'll talk soon. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, guys.